The rain didn't just fall that day. It clawed at the earth, turning the cemetery into a churning slurry of mud and regret, the kind that sucked at your ankles like it wanted to claim you too. I stood there, 72 years etched into my bones, my name Evelyn Carter, feeling every one of those years as if they were lead weights dragging me toward the open grave. The casket gleamed dully under its plastic shroud, slick with water that beaded like unshed tears, and they told me it was Victor inside. My Victor, 28 years old, with hands that could coax life back into a rusted-out engine and eyes that held the steady promise of tomorrow. But as the preacher's voice droned on about eternal rest and the Lord's mysterious ways, my other son, Lyle, stood beside me, his arm looped through mine like a chain. His wife, Tessa, flanked him, her umbrella tilted just so, shielding her perfect makeup from the downpour. Their faces were masks of polished grief, Lyle's jaw set in that solemn line he'd practiced in the mirror as a boy, Tessa's lips pursed in a way that said she was already calculating the cost of the wake. The town of Riverton sprawled behind us like a forgotten bruise on the landscape, sagging row houses huddled against the ever-present haze from the shuttered steel mills, streets cracked like old veins, and the river, a sluggish, oil-slicked serpent, winding through it all, carrying away the ghosts of better days. We'd all been born into this chokehold of rust and regret, back when the mills belched fire into the night sky and men like Victor's father came home with singed eyebrows and paychecks that barely covered the rent. I'd raised my boys here, in a duplex that leaned a little more each winter, its walls papered with faded florals that peeled like old skin. But that day, under the relentless gray, as the first clod of doubt thudded against the casket like a judgment, my phone buzzed in the pocket of my sodden black coat. I ignored it at first. Grief does that, turns the world to white noise, but it buzzed again, insistent, a vibration that crawled up my spine like a warning. I slipped it out, thumbing the screen with fingers numb from the cold. Unknown number. The words hit me like a slap. Asterisk, I'm not in that coffin. Trust no one. Asterisk, the world tilted, the rain blurring the letters into smees, but they burned clear in my mind. Not Victor. Then who, or what, had they lowered into that hole? My breath caught, a ragged hitch that Lyle must have heard because he turned, his brow furrowing in that practiced concern. Ma, you okay? It's just the rain. Let's get you inside. His hand on my elbow was firm, too firm, guiding me away from the grave like he was herding a stray. Tessa shot me a glance, her eyes sharp as shears, and in that moment, something fractured inside me, a mother's instinct, long dormant under layers of exhaustion and loss. I nodded, shoving the phone back into my pocket, but the message echoed like a heartbeat I couldn't silence. Who was this? A cruel prank from some Milltown ghost with a grudge? Or Weiss, Victor, my boy, clawing his way back from whatever hell they'd tried to bury him in. I'd lost his father young, to a welder's torch that turned a man into ash in seconds, leaving me with 2 infants and a mortgage that gnawed at my savings like termites. But Victor, he'd been my light through it all. And now, as we trudged back to the car, mud-caking my sensible shoes, I couldn't shake the chill that had nothing to do with the weather. Trust no one. The words looped in my head, a mantra of dread, as Lyle drove us to the duplex for the gathering, his word for the wake, kept small and swift, like he couldn't wait to wash his hands of it. That night, alone in the duplex with its creaking floors and the faint hum of the fridge that Victor had fixed just last month, I let the memories flood in. They always did, grief like a river breaching its banks, pulling you under until you couldn't tell up from down. I'd been 24 when Victor came into the world, a squalling bundle born in the back room of Riverton General while a storm rattled the windows like angry fists. His father, Harlan, no relation to the Harlan I'd meet later, thank God, was a broad-shouldered welder with hands rough as sandpaper and a laugh that could shake the rafters. We'd met at a mill dance, the kind where the air smelled of sweat and cheap beer, and he'd spun me across the floor until I forgot the ache in my feet from 12-hour shifts on the line, stitching tops that would one day cover the very trucks hauling away our jobs. Gonna build us a life, Evie, he'd promised, his breath warm against my ear, and for a while, we believed it. The duplex was our castle then, 2 stories of drafty charm, with a porch swing that creaked lullabies and a yard overgrown with weeds we called wildflowers. Victor arrived first, in the heat of summer '97, his cries pacing the humid night like a siren. I held him close, his tiny fist curling around my finger, and in that moment I knew a love fierce enough to burn down the mills themselves. Harlan was there, beaming through his exhaustion, calling him my little spark plug. We were poor as church mice, Harlan's checks stretched thin over formula and diapers, my seamstress gigs mending overalls for the mill hands, but we were whole. Sundays were for river picnics, Harlan teaching Victor to skip stones while I nursed Lyle in the shade, the water glinting like fool's gold under the rare blue sky. Lyle came 2 years later, in the bite of autumn '99, quieter than his brother, slipping into the world with barely a whimper. He latched onto Victor from the start, those dark eyes tracking his every move like a shadow learning to mimic light. I'd rock them both in the old glider, Harlan's arms around us, whispering dreams of expansion. One day, Evie, we'll add on a room for the boys, maybe a workshop for me. But dreams have a way of curdling in Riverton. The accident came swift as a spark, Harlan leaning into a faulty line, the torch flaring white-hot, consuming him before the whistle could blow. I got the call at dawn, the foreman's voice cracking over the line. Explosion. Evie. He didn't suffer. Lies we tell the widows to soften the blade. I buried him under a sky as gray as this one, the boys too young to understand. Victor clutching my skirt and wailing, Lyle silent, thumb jammed in his mouth. After that, it was just us, me piecing together shifts at the textile plant until my fingers bled, coming home to boys who needed feeding, clothing, stories to chase the shadows. Victor was fire from the cradle. At 3, he'd tinker with Harlan's old tools, hammering nails into scrap wood with a focus that broke my heart. Fixing it, Ma, he'd say, grease smudged on his cherub cheek. Like Pa fixed everything. Lyle was water, slippery, adaptive, always trailing Victor but with a gleam in his eye that hinted at depths I couldn't plumb. He'd hoard shiny things, bottle caps, wire scraps, slipping them into his pockets like treasures from another world. For later, Ma, he'd murmur when I asked, and I'd let it go, too tired to press. School years blurred into a rhythm of bus rides and brown bag lunches, the duplex our anchor amid the town's slow hemorrhage. The mills started closing in the early 2000s. Feist one, then another, spewing men onto the streets like spent casings. I took in sewing full-time, mending curtains and hems for neighbors who paid in canned goods or IOUs. Victor thrived in shop class, his hands steady on lathes and welders, dreaming aloud of his own garage. We'll fix the world, Ma, one engine at a time. You won't lift a finger anymore. Lyle? He was clever, acing tests without cracking a book, but his eyes wandered to the edges of the classroom of our little family. He'd come home with tales of side hustles, pocketing change from reselling comic books or running errands for the older boys down by the tracks. Enterprise, Ma, he'd grin, and I'd ruffle his hair, ignoring the knot in my gut that whispered of shortcuts. By high school, the paths diverged like cracks in the river ice. Victor, 16 and built like his father, landed a part-time gig at Old Man Greer's junkyard, hauling wrecks and learning the innards of transmissions under the hoods of forgotten Fords. He'd come home stinking of oil and triumph, pockets jingling with tips, always slipping me a 10 for the grocery fund. For you, Ma, get that new sewing machine. We'd sit on the porch swing at dusk, the air thick with mill dust even after the shutdowns, and he'd sketch plans on napkins, a garage with lifts and neon signs, a place where Riverton could rebuild itself. Lyle, 2 years behind, slouched through classes, charming teachers with essays cribbed from library books but spending recesses whispering with the fast crowd, the ones who knew where the chop shops hid behind the rail yard. He'd drag Victor into his schemes. Come on, bro, fence this alternator. Quick cash for Ma's birthday. Victor always refused. Jaw tight, that's stealing, Lyle. We earn it straight. But blood pulls hard. And I'd catch Lyle eyeing the duplex deed on the kitchen table, his fingers twitching like he could will it into his palm. Tessa entered the picture like a storm front, rolling into Riverton at 19 on the Greyhound from the city upstate, all sharp heels and sharper ambitions. She waitressed at the diner, turning heads with her laugh like shattered glass, and snagged Lyle before he graduated. Their wedding was a courthouse quickie, me in my best dress, Victor best man in a rented tux that hung loose on his frame, the judge droning through vows while rain lashed the windows. Tessa was a vision in white lace, but her eyes scanned the room like inventory. The duplex peeling paint, my calloused hands, Victor's grease-stained cuffs. "We'll make something of this town," she declared at the reception, "a potluck in our backyard," her voice honey over gravel. Lyle beamed, arm around her waist, but Victor hung back, nursing a soda, his silence louder than the chatter. At first, it was good. Tessa pushed Lyle into sales, hawking used cars from a lot on the edge of town. Her charm closing deals he couldn't. They rented a trailer on the outskirts, all Formica counters and dreams of flipping up. Visits were weekly then, Sunday dinners in the duplex, Tessa's casseroles steaming on the table, Lyle regaling us with tales of big scores. Victor would nod, adding his own garage updates. First customer, first full paycheck. While I beamed, my boys bridging the worlds I'd never crossed. But the cracks spiderweb slow. Lyle's calls grew sparse, swamped. "Ma, rain check." Tessa's smiles thinned. "Evelyn, that duplex is charming, but have you thought about selling? We could invest the equity, get you something easier." Victor bristled at that, his fork clinking hard against his plate. "Ma's home is fine, Tess. It's ours." The pressure built like steam in a sealed pipe. Lyle started helping with the bills, slipping envelopes under the door, 20s folded crisp. "For the roof, Ma, leaks like a sieve." But the roof held, and the money vanished into their nest egg. Victor noticed first, poring over the statements one night after they'd left early, claiming a client dinner. "They are dipping into the savings, Ma. The joint account you set up after Pa's signatures look off like Lyle's practicing yours." I waved it away, heart aching at the doubt in his eyes. His providing Vic family shares. But he didn't buy it. He started locking the garage books in a safe under the floorboards, sleeping there some nights with a baseball bat by the cot. "It's not sharing, Ma. It's siphoning." Tessa's got him convinced we're the anchor dragging them down. The last normal dinner was 3 weeks before the night my. Lyle and Tessa arrived late, Tessa in a dress that screamed city money, Lyle with a bottle of wine that tasted like regret. Victor was quiet, pushing peas around his plate, while I tried to fill the silences with talk of the garden, tomatoes ripening despite the blight. "We're expanding, Ma," Lyle announced, clinking his glass. Tessa's networked alone, buying into a dealership up in the county seat. "Need collateral, though." Thought maybe the duplex. Tessa leaned in, eyes gleaming. "It's prime for a flip, Evelyn. You could move into something modern, a condo, even. We'd handle the details." Victor's fork dropped, the clatter echoing. "The duplex is Ma's home. Our home. You touch it, you touch us." Lyle laughed, too loud. "Come on, Vic, don't be sentimental. Times change. We all gotta move up." Victor's eyes met mine then, dark and stormy. "No," he said simply, and the air thickened. Tessa's smile faltered. Lyle's jaw ticked, but they left with hugs that felt like vice grips. Victor walked them out, and I heard the murmur, "Back off, Lyle. Oh, I go to the bank myself." The door shut, and Victor returned, face pale. "Ma, they are not stopping. I found papers in Lyle's truck, forged deeds, policy riders. They want the garage too. Upped my life insurance last month, said it was for you. But the beneficiary split between them." My stomach twisted. "Why would they?" He pulled me into a hug, his arms strong as Harlan's had been. "Fear, Ma. Fear of sinking hay. But I won't let them drag us under. Promise me, if anything happens, you dig. Check everything." That anything came on a Tuesday, the kind of dawn where the river mist clings like smoke. Victor texted at 5:47 a.m. Asterisk garage early. Big job. Love you, Ma. Dinner tonight. Got news. Asterisk good news. I'd learn later. I was folding his laundry, his woke shirt starched crisp, when the hospital called at 8:12. Mrs. Carter, your son Victor has been admitted. Severe respiratory distress, possible chemical exposure. Come immediately. Chemical. Victor was meticulous, masks and vents second nature. My hands shook as I grabbed my keys, calling Rita next door. Drive me, Rita, please. She did, her old Chevy coughing through the haze. My mind a whirlwind. Overturned tank. Faulty hose. The EI lobby reeked of antiseptic and disper, fluorescent lights buzzing like angry hornets. Lyle and Tessa were there. How? The nurse hadn't paged them. I was next of kin. Lyle crushed me in a hug, his cologne cloying. Ma, it's bad. Fumes from a bad batch of solvent. Lungs filling up, they say. Tessa murmured condolences, her hand cool on mine, but her eyes darted to the doors like she expected reinforcements. Victor lay in the bay, intubated, monitors beeping a frantic rhythm, his face bloated under the oxygen mask. I took his hand, swollen, unresponsive, and whispered, "Hold on, baby. Ma's here." The doctors swirled, inhalation injury, brain edema, wear-inducing coma to buy time. Lyle hovered, phone in hand. I called the garage crew, workers' comps filed. Vic upped the coverage smart, $100K payout if. He trailed off, but the word hung, if. I lived in that waiting room for 4 days, vinyl chairs imprinting my spine, coffee from the vending machine turning to acid in my gut. Lyle and Tessa rotated in, bringing sandwiches I couldn't swallow, tallying bills with the social worker. It'll be okay, Ma, Lyle said on day 2, voice pitched low. Policies ironclad, beneficiaries are me and Tess, per Vic's wishes. For you, long term. Wishes? Victor had joked about it once, waving off the forms. They pressured him. I muttered, but grief muffled the words. Tessa nodded sympathetically. He wanted you secure, Evelyn. Smart boy. On day 3, a flicker. His fingers twitched in mine, eyes fluttering behind lids. His fighting. I cried, but the nurse soothed. Reflex, Hun machines play tricks. Day 4 shattered me. The doctor, a weary man with wire-rimmed glasses, gathered us in a side room smelling of stale decisions. No recovery, Mrs. Carter. Organs failing. We can prolong, but quality of life, Lyle nodded first. Too quick. Pull it. Vic wouldn't want to linger. Tessa squeezed his hand, tears artful on her lashes. I exploded. Linger? He's your brother. Fight for him. But they wore me down with whispers of burden and cost, and at 3:17 p.m., the machines wailed their final flatline. I collapsed over his bed, keening into the sheets that still held his scent, oil and soap and home, while Lyle called the funeral home, efficient as a clock. The arrangements blurred, Lyle handling it all, simple send-off. Ma, like Vic wanted. Closed casket, damage too severe, a service in the VFW hall, not even our church. Attendance was sparse, Rita, a few junkyard hands, the preacher rushing through psalms. Lyle eulogized. Victor was the fixer in our family, always mending what broke. Now he's mended in heaven. Tessa sobbed softly, but her gaze flicked to her watch. I sat numb. The buzz from the grave replaying, asterisk I'm not in that coffin. Asterisk as dote rained down. My phone vibrated again. Asterisk who are you? Asterisk I typed. Hidden by my purse. Asterisk can't say yet. Lyle's watching. Check garage desk. Note for you. Trust Rita if needed. Asterisk Rita, my neighbor of 20 years, widowed like me, her raspy laugh a balm through the boys' teenage storms. Home that night. The duplex echoed hollow, Victor's boots by the door, his coffee mug on the counter, Lyle's old room stripped bare years ago. I drove to the garage under cover of dusk, the lean-to a silhouette against the rail yard's glow. No locks, Lyle's doing. And inside, the air stale, tools untouched. In the desk, under false bottom, Victor's handwriting, cramped and urgent. Asterisk Ma, Lyle's forging everything. Tessa wants it all. Duplex, garage, your savings. Pushed the policy hike, said for your security. Found their loan docs, $80K debt. Sharks circling. If I vanish, dig bank statements. Harlan, yard guy, knows more. Love you, fight. Harlan, the quiet mechanic who'd worked with Victor, scarred from a mill mishap, loyal as the river's bend. Sleep evaded me, rage simmering low. Dawn brought another text, bank today. Withdrawals not yours. The teller, Mrs. Polk, paled at my demand for statements. Hey, Evelyn, last 6 months. Pages trembled in my grip. $1,200 January, $3,500 February, $2,800 March, siphoned to repairs. Victor signed, she said, but the loops wobbled, Lyle's flare bleeding through. He came with Lyle, said arthritis flared. Victor, strong as oak. Anyone witness? She nodded. Tessa too, once, charming as ever. Rage crested, hot and blinding. My sons, brothers, pilfering like thieves in the night. Lyle arrived that afternoon, solo, bearing pie from the diner. Ma, you look peaked. Eat, strength for the days ahead. His eyes scanned the room, landing on Victor's mug. I set the plate aside untouched. What did you slip in his thermos that morning, Lyle? The solvent fumes. Casual, probing. He froze, fork midway. Ma, what? Grief's twisting you. Vic's gone. Accident. No police report. I pressed, voice steel. Garage spotless. No spill, no scotch. And the body, closed casket full burns, but you won't let Rita peek. His laugh cracked. Cops skip small stuff. Private biz. Ma, rest, you're imagining shadows. But sweat gleamed on his upper lip, and he left abrupt. Phone to air, she's asking questions. Speed it up. Messages part in fragments. Asterisk they staged it, swapped with a rail yard drifter, ODD on bad batch. Claimed my policy quick. I'm holed up, lungs scarred, but alive. Tessa's chemistry play, antifreeze in coffee, slow poison mimics fumes. Meet Harlan tomorrow, under bridge. Bring nothing. Asterisk the bridge, rusted span over the river, graffiti a testament to lost loves and vendettas. I went at noon. Heart pounding, Rita's borrowed coat hiding my frame. Harlan waited, hood up, face a map of old burns. Mrs. C? Vic's safe, boathouse north, for drip keeping him steady. They dosed him heavy. Doc says another hour, he'd be gone. He pressed a drive into my palm. Recordings. Vic bugged the trailer. Listen alone. The duplex that eve, laptop wheezing to life, rain pattering like accusations. Lyle's voice first, tinny through the MIC. Vic sniffing, sign over the garage, or we execute the plan. Tessa's got the antifreeze, hardware run, cash. Tasteless, hits respiratory like bad weld. Tessa, silk over venom. He sips it black. We call 911, fumes story holds. Payout clears the loans. Duplex flips for $150K. Ma's collateral next, widow's despair, pills from her cabinet. Clean. Then Victor, days later, gasping to Harlan. They did it, hid the drifter as me, policy cashed, exposed them. Love her, subs tore from me, raw and animal, fists pounding the table until it splintered. Moda, fratricide for filthy leuca. My boys, womb-bound, unraveling the thread that held us. Confrontation brewed overnight, fury a forge in my chest. They came at dusk, Lyle and Tessa, faces thunderous, take-out bags swinging like lews. Ma, Rita called, says you're driving wild, talking to air. Tessa unpacked stir-fry, aromas innocent. Eat, Evelyn, you're wasting away. I stood at the counter, knife in hand from habit, paring apples for ghosts. Wasting? Like Victor, with your garage poison. Lyle's mask slipped, What the blazes, Mao. I hit play on the laptop, volume cranked, asterisk antifreeze. Pay out. Ma's next. Asterisk Tessa lunged, nails raking, deep fake. Lies. But Lyle staggered, color fleeing. Vic. Alive? How? Laughter bubbled from me, jagged and unhinged. Buzzing from the grave you faked. You killed a stranger, buried him as my son. For what? Debts Tessa racked on your soul. The room erupted, Lyle roaring, you don't see, Ma. Riverton's a corpse. We needed air. Tessa shrieked. Victor chained us, his honest garage, bleeding us dry with loans to prop it. I swung the knife's handle, connecting with Lyle's shoulder, a thud of flesh on wood. Chained. He carried you, fixed your jalopies, bailed your cons. They grappled, Tessa clawing for the drive, Lyle pinning my arm until bruises bloomed. Stop, or cops hear this. I snarled, knee to his gut. They fled into the gale, Lyle howling curses, Tessa's threats whipping back. You'll regret, old woman. Sirens wailed by midnight, Harlan's anonymous tip, evidence emailed to the sheriff. Station under harsh lights, sergeant's desk a battlefield of forms. Harlan testified steady. Photos from the run, Tessa at hardware, antifreeze bottle. Drifters tox mismatched Victor's med records, no priors, wrong scars. Drive played, gasps from deputies. Lyle and Tessa hauled in at dawn, cuffs clicking like punctuation. Lyle spat, she's deranged, senile delusions. Tessa wailed for bail, but the recordings bound them. Exhumation under floodlights, mud yielding the casket, stranger's face, jaundiced, tattoos of skulls where Victor's clean skin should be. Lab confirmed, antifreeze saturation, lethal brew. Months clawed by, investigation a grinder, turning family into Exhibit A. I testified prelims, voice a rasp, I birthed them in storm and sorrow, Harlan's death my first grave. Victor built from ashes, Lyle borrowed shadows. Neighbors rallied, Rita baking pies, Greer from the yard swearing affidavits. Victor's surface slow, lungs scarred, voice a wheeze, but alive, testifying from a wheelchair. They weren't kin by end, Ma. Wolves in brotherskins. Trial opened in the county courthouse, Riverton's ghosts packing the gallery, mill widows in faded shawls, mechanics with grease under nails. Prosecutor carved precise, recordings boomed, asterisk antifreeze, flipped the duplex, widows despair. Asterisk jury. Hardened by layoffs, softened by loss, winced at Tessa's tears, Lyle's glaze. My stand came day two, legs leaden but spine steel. Victor was my dawn after Harlan's dark. Fixed engines, fixed us. Lyle charmed the world, but hunger hollowed him. They planned my end too, pills in my tea, story of a broken heart. Cross-exam probed, bias, Mrs. Carter, maternal fury. I met the lawyer's eyes. Fury? For love betrayed. Yes. But truth don't bend. Victor's testimony sealed. I hired Harlan private, bugs in their trailer. Heard the plot, fled with his help. Faked my collapse, but they finished the drifter to cash in. Closing crushed, not desperation, deliberation. Fratricide for fortune. Deliberation stretched 8 hours, the weight of ice on my chest. Verdict, guilty, conspiracy, fraud, murder one. Judge's voice boomed. Life, no mercy, 30 years ironclad. Lyle lunged, bellowing, you buried us alive, Mao. Tessa crumpled, make up a ruin. Victor squeezed my hand in the hole. You unearthed me, Ma. We rebuild. Aftermath reshaped the ruins. Duplex stands, Lyle's room a fund office, papers for families gutted by kin greed. Victor's garage thrives. Harlan partner, neon sign flickering, Carter's fix, souls and engines. Payout, donated whole, to Riverton Refuge, aiding betrayed blood. Tessa plea bargained down. County time. Lyle's letters arrive weekly, scrawls of sorry, Ma. Desperation blinded, but I burn them on the porch, ashes to the river. 5 years erode the rawest edges. I'm 7 to 7, hair frost white, but the garden blooms, Tomatoes fat, defiant. Victor's with Clara, hands gentle as his, their daughter gripping my finger like he once did. Harlan's Wednesdays, coffee black, plots for the refuge, cases stacking, a sister suspecting fratricide, a widow sniffing forgeries. Town whispers, Evelyn Carter, the unburier. Rita laughs, you rose fiercer than the floods. Sundays, under the bridge, now strung with refuge lanterns, I picnic with Victor, thermos steaming safe. Ma, he says, voice clear now, you taught forgiveness ain't forgetting. I grip his hand, scars faint. Not forgiveness, Vic ferocity, for what's worth saving. Rage, it banks low, fuel for the fight. They came for my world. I forged it anew, barbed and unbreakable. Trust no one, etched in my marrow. But trust this, a mother's wrath remakes graves into gardens. Did this unravel you? Spill your city below. Chicago's chill, Buffalo's bite. Share the scars. Super thanks fuels more, raw reckonings await. Pinned, 2 fresh fractures. Subscribe, don't drift. Next howl's calling.